Nobody could have ever imagined in their life that they will be facing this situation.
This is the story of Aarushi Talwar. Aarushi Talwar lived with her parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar, in Noida, near Delhi. The family appeared successful and respected. Both parents were dentists. They lived in a comfortable apartment. Aarushi attended a good school. By most accounts, she was cheerful, intelligent, and close with her family. Nothing about the household appeared unusual, at least from the outside. But on the morning of May 16th, 2008, everything changed. Aarushi was found dead in her bedroom. She had suffered severe head injuries. Her throat had also been slit. The crime scene was immediately horrifying, and strangely, there were no obvious signs of forced entry, which raised a terrifying possibility. If nobody broke in, then who exactly had access to the apartment that night? Very quickly, suspicion fell on Hemraj Banjade, the family's live-in domestic worker. Because Hemraj was missing, gone. Police immediately began treating him as the prime suspect. News channels repeated his name constantly. To the public, the case already looked solved. The servant killed the girl and fled. Simple. Except it wasn't simple at all. Because the next day, Hemraj's body was discovered on the rooftop terrace of the same building.
Yeah, the man police had publicly accused of murder had been dead the entire time. Suddenly, the entire investigation collapsed in on itself. Now, there were two murder victims inside the same home, killed during the same night. And somehow, nobody heard anything. No screams, no struggle, nothing. And this is where the case starts getting deeply strange. Police handling of the crime scene was, honestly, disastrous. The apartment wasn't properly sealed. Friends, relatives, journalists, and officers walked through the scene. Potential evidence became contaminated almost immediately. Objects were touched, rooms were disturbed. Investigators reportedly failed to preserve crucial forensic material during the first few hours. And in murder investigations, those first few hours matter more than almost anything else. Once evidence is compromised, the truth becomes harder and harder to reconstruct. But the investigation pushed forward anyway. Soon, police attention shifted toward Arushi's parents. Investigators started questioning whether an outsider could realistically enter the apartment, murder two people, and leave unnoticed. And then came the theory that would dominate headlines across India.
Authorities suggested Rajesh Talwar may have caught Aarushi and Hemraj together in a compromising situation. According to that theory, the murders were committed in a sudden burst of rage. Now, the media absolutely exploded when this idea surfaced. Television channels ran non-stop coverage. Speculation turned vicious. Rumors spread everywhere, and the public became obsessed with the case. But there was a massive problem. Police never clearly proved that scenario happened. No reliable eyewitnesses, no confirmed forensic evidence establishing that exact sequence of events. Still, the theory took hold. And once public opinion shifts in a case like this, it becomes incredibly difficult to reverse. Meanwhile, the investigation itself became increasingly chaotic. India's Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, eventually took over the case. And honestly, things somehow became even more confusing. Different investigative teams reached different conclusions. One team reportedly believed there wasn't enough evidence against the parents. Another believed the parents were almost certainly responsible. Evidence contradicted previous findings. Witness statements changed. Forensic interpretations shifted.
At times, it genuinely felt like investigators themselves couldn't agree on what had happened. And perhaps the biggest issue? There was no definitive murder weapon ever conclusively tied to the crime. Think about that. One of the most famous murder cases in India, and investigators could never fully establish exactly what weapon had been used. The prosecution relied heavily on circumstantial evidence.
Meaning there was no confession, no direct eyewitness, no undeniable forensic proof. Instead, prosecutors argued that the circumstances themselves pointed toward the Talwars. The apartment was locked, there was no clear sign of outsiders entering, the parents were present in the home. Therefore, investigators argued the murders had to be an inside job. But critics argued the investigation had already been so badly mishandled that no conclusion could truly be trusted anymore. Then came another disturbing aspect of the case: the media coverage. Some reporting became intensely invasive. Private details about Arushi's life were discussed publicly. Speculation was presented almost like fact, and many people later criticized the coverage for sensationalizing the tragedy rather than seeking truth. By 2013, 5 years after the murders, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. The verdict shocked many people. Some believe justice had finally been served. Others believe the couple had been convicted without sufficient evidence. And honestly, that division still exists today, because even after the conviction, questions remained unanswered. A lot of questions. Then in 2017, another massive twist arrived. The Allahabad High Court overturned the convictions. The court ruled that the evidence against the Talwars was insufficient. Judges criticized the investigation and stated that suspicion alone could not replace proof. After years in prison, the Talwars walked free. And just like that, the case returned to complete uncertainty. No confirmed killer, no definitive reconstruction, no final explanation everyone agrees on. Even today, people continue arguing over what happened that night inside the Talwar apartment. Some believe the parents were guilty all along. Others think investigators focused on them too quickly and ignored other possibilities. And some believe the original investigative failures destroyed any real chance of discovering the truth. That's what makes this case so haunting. Not just the murders themselves, but the feeling that the truth may have been lost almost immediately. Because usually, with enough time, murder cases become clearer. Evidence accumulates. Mistakes get corrected. Facts settle things. But the Aarushi Talwar case only became murkier with every passing year. And maybe the most unsettling part is this: 2 people were murdered inside a locked apartment. One of the biggest investigations in India followed. The entire country became obsessed with the case. And after all the court trials, accusations, documentaries, headlines, and theories, nobody can say with complete certainty what really happened that night.